The Deshaun Watson trade rumors have heated up in recent days as the star quarterback has met with at least 4 teams this week. Matt, I have a very simple question for you. Where do you want to see Deshaun Watson traded to?
You know, I really think Deshaun Watson should go to Cleveland and be the new Browns quarterback. Obviously, you saw Baker send out that letter. Yeah. He seems to think it might be done. Yeah. Baker is obviously, if they're going after Watson, he's going to be one of the quarterbacks that is sought after. And you know, as far as the Browns look, obviously not a great season this year, missing the playoffs. They were plagued with injuries, but this is still a great roster. You still have, Donovan Peoples-Jones is a solid wide receiver. You have Nick Chubb. You have Kareem Hunt. You have a defense that was one of the best in the league and one of the best rushing offenses in the league as well. And if you look at Deshaun Watson, what he's been able to do in past seasons, I got a question for you. Who were the 2 leading rushers for the Houston Texans in Deshaun Watson's, playoff runs with them in 2018 and 2019?
Wow, probably Deshaun Watson and David Johnson, perhaps?
No, you were close. Deshaun Watson was second for rushing in both of those years.
Wow.
It was Lamar Miller with a little over 900 yards one season in 2018, and then Carlos Hyde with a little over 1,000 rushing yards in 2019.
Very interesting.
Nick Chubb in 14 games this year rushed for over 1,200 yards. So you obviously are getting an upgrade there. Plus, sure, Deshaun Watson can rush as well. Stefanski still has a lot to prove after a lackluster offense this year, but Watson goes to Cleveland, and he automatically is probably the favorites to win in that division.
Man, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of what you said. I think the Browns would be an awesome destination for Deshaun Watson. And obviously, since the season ended, Kevin Stefanski and that kind of front office in Cleveland was very clear that they wanted an upgrade at quarterback if they could get one. And Deshaun Watson is certainly that over Baker Mayfield. But Deshaun Watson should be headed to Carolina. And I said as much last January, before the 2021 season, before Deshaun Watson's criminal and civil suits became to the public. The Panthers are the spot for Watson. Reportedly, both sides met on Tuesday, and the meeting went, quote, very well. So that means that there's a deal in place. Again, that's the reporting. Houston would have never allowed the 2 sides to meet if there wasn't a deal already in place. That deal would probably revolve around multiple first-round picks, a few mid-round picks, some combination of J.C. Horn, Jeremy Chin, Brian Burns, which is a lot.
That is a lot.
But you'd be getting, in return, Deshaun Watson, who is a legitimate top 5 quarterback in the NFL, who when last seen in 2020 led the NFL in passing yards. Completed 70% of his passes, was second only in passer rating to Aaron Rodgers, who obviously won the MVP that year. And obviously Carolina really doesn't have a ton of talent on the offensive side of the ball outside of Christian McCaffrey, but that spectacular season from Watson in 2020 that I just mentioned, the leading receiver on that team was Brandon Cooks. And you mentioned what he was dealing with the running game, the likes of Lamar Miller and Carlos Hyde, who was just recently released by the Jaguars. So that tells you all you need to know. But needless to say, Deshaun Watson is the type of quarterback that can bring Carolina back to relevancy in a pretty wide open NFC. Now that Tom Brady is back, we obviously all like the Rams. We like the Packers. Brady being back makes the Bucs probably the favorite. But aside from that, Deshaun Watson in Carolina makes them a legit threat. So that's where I want to see that happen. But where do you see? Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Watson in Cleveland. Where does that put Cleveland in terms of a very loaded AFC?
It is a very loaded AFC, but right off the bat with the division, I think that they go right to the top. Obviously, you still have Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, and you have Joe Burrow with Cincinnati, but we've seen both of those teams. Joe Burrow played well, but I think Cincinnati could be susceptible to a sophomore slump, possibly. And then, Ravens have had injury issues, and they've been a little up and down. They're still going to be competitive. As for the Pittsburgh Steelers, they'll still be competitive, but he's already in that division, arguably the best quarterback in that division if he goes there, even with Lamar and Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I would say he is.
Yeah, and as for the rest of the AFC, it's going to be tight no matter what. But you look at the rest of these rosters, and with him and seeing what Cleveland does to add through the draft and also through free agency, I think they're right there at the top of the pack, and they're going to be considered a playoff contender, if not a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, another reason Cleveland makes a lot of sense is because, when you look at the roster, and obviously you highlighted on both sides, there's a lot of talent there. The rest of the AFC, especially at the quarterback position. When you have a roster like Cleveland does, and you have a quarterback like Baker Mayfield who just doesn't really quite match up with the likes of Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, etc., you kind of have to go that route where we got to get a quarterback in here right now if we really want to compete. But, on the Carolina side again, Matt Rule is truly on the hot seat at this point. His quarterbacks have been Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Darnold, Cam Newton, Deshaun Watson obviously is that guy. And that's, again, I mentioned a coach, a staff who is seemingly on the hot seat. And again, I just want to remind people, Deshaun Watson, this is a top 5 bona fide franchise quarterback we're talking about who can instantly make a team much better.
Absolutely. And to your point, before we wrap this up, the NFC is basically wide open.
Yeah.
We've talked about this. And even, talking with Ellis in a production meeting prior to Tom Brady making his announcement, he even said the NFC South is wide open if, Tampa Bay doesn't figure out their quarterback position. Obviously, that's a little different now because you have Brady back, but Watson gives you a chance to be that second best team in that division and maybe even beat Tampa Bay as far as, at least at home and split that matchup. But it's going to be really interesting. Deshaun Watson would catapult them to, if not, 3, probably the 4th best team in the NFC, if I'm thinking about it, or even 5th,
100%, yeah. Well, there should be some more Deshaun Watson developments coming in as probably as little as 48, 72 hours or so. So we'll be locked into that. But catch us on tomorrow's episode. A Simple Question for Scott Procter and Matt Morris. We'll see you there.